What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. That's Dean 78904. If you want to get all technical, 5'11", let's say 5'11" if you're getting technical. 5'11" on the East Coast, 2'11" on the West Coast, 4'11" Tennessee time. So, of course, that means it's time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It is called Grinderslive. Joining me today, Kid Yahoo himself, Kirk Dees, directly back, more or less, from Vegas. You hung out with my frenemy, Grant Neefer, to some extent. How was Vegas? Good times or what?
Great times. Quick question: is chat disabled?
Yeah. So we've had some issues with the chat. Chat is currently disabled. Unfortunately, we cannot. You guys can still hit the like button if you're watching the show. We do appreciate that. It helps us out with the algorithm and all that. But yeah, so what we've been trying to do with a variety of success, we're trying to get people over to the Rotogrinders Discord channel, and they can ask their questions there. And what Discord channel is that? Well, it's rotogrinders.com/Discord. And we're in the live stream chat room. Now, there's some premium channels, obviously, for the RG Discord. Some are free. That is a free channel. So we want to welcome, you don't have to be a premium member or anything like that. Just to have an RG account doesn't cost you anything. So, we've had there were some shenanigans going on with people coming into our chat and saying absolute nonsense and spewing some awful things. So, we're shutting that down, and now we're trying to keep the community clean and good, and bring it over to the RG Discord channel until further notice, I suppose. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So Vegas, but it's a 4-game slate. We'll knock it all out. We got plenty of time, obviously, but we can have a little bit of pleasantries, a little bit of banter before the show. And I'm curious, what's it like hanging out with Grant Neefer? Is he like in real life? Is he saying the way he is on air? He's like a big softie. I've met him before, and I think you have too, but yes. This was in his own element. So I'll just say what I did each day. So I used my Yahoo trip, the 5K, you know how they were adding that to a lot of the MGM thing, right? Yeah, the MGM promotion that they had. So I won one of those. So I used that. I had to use it by the end of the year. So what that basically allowed me to do was to live like I would normally not live when I was in Vegas, or like visit, I spent a lot of money on like extravagant meals and stuff like that because it had to be used on like MGM properties and stuff. I didn't have to pay for my room. I already had a free room, so that didn't come across the credit. So I went down there with that. I got UFC tickets from DK. I went to the UFC fights on Saturday night, which was absolutely electric. I was like 11. That was the big upset, right? That was like the major upset. Yeah, the news. I was like 11-1 sports betting, and my one. Not only did my one bet, I threw stupidly Nunez in a parlay, which would have paid out a nice chunk if she had just won. But I also did pretty well on DK, and if Nunez just wins that fight, I win an extra $30K on DraftKings. Yeah, so I was upset about that. Plus, my girl loves her, and so my girl was crying. I brought my girl, and my girl cried and I was like, "There's no crying in UFC," And I know the rules. Yeah. So then, we got access to like this lounge where we all the fighters were hanging out too. So like Davidson Figueiredo was in there. Jillian Robertson, who won her fight really quickly and easily, was in there. There was like a lot of fighters just like, in the same room. And then I went out to a bunch of dinners with Aguiar, who's a good friend who's out there. And, he's so good at like top end food. He was telling us all the restaurants and where to go and what to order and all that. So I just let him
guide that. But I had some friends out there. I had Grant got there on Friday. We met up Friday night at a lounge and hung out a little bit. And then we met up on Sunday for NFL, where he gave me some props. So shout out to that. We saw
it good because he's always talking about scores and odds, and it is one loss record. It's very good in scores and odds.
I actually lost two bets this week, and I forgot about that. So he gave me 2 winners, 1 loser.
Okay.
So I made money. So shout out to Grant. Yeah, he was telling me all about, we were talking scores and odds and whatnot. I've kind of stayed away from that because it's not legal in Massachusetts. So but I feel like I'm missing out. So now I want to get all involved. Yeah. But anyways, so that was fun. Went to a Cirque du Soleil show the last night.
Which one? Mystère?
I was just the one at the MGM. Ka.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've seen Mystère and I've seen the Beatles one.
Yeah, I was eating A5 Wagyu beef like every night, and like it was, yeah, because you had to spend all this money. So like,
you got to burn it off. You can't take it on with you, so you might as well spend it somewhere.
No, exactly. So yeah, so I came back and I feel like I have the biggest COVID sweat going on ever. So I'm really hoping I don't get it.
Hopefully not.
But if I think about it realistically, even with everything popping everywhere, there's also it was rodeo week in Vegas, so it was everywhere. So I was debating getting a cowboy hat. Everybody had a cowboy hat.
When in Rome.
Yeah, exactly. Like just when in Rome. Everyone had a cowboy hat. Plus, I went to UFC, so I'm thinking I was around a heavily non-vaxxed crowd. I would probably guess. And Vegas was bumping. Like it was like pre-COVID. Like nothing ever happened. It was full Vegas as far as I'm concerned.
We're not going to have to put you in the health protocols, hopefully, during the show. You're going to be good to go for at least 50 minutes or so, give or take.
Yeah, for today.
I mean, a lot of athletes, oh man, the health protocols thing is sweeping the sports. I'm sure it's, I feel like that's a representation of America. I don't know. I have not dug into that. That's what Roth tweeted out the other day. Basically, that's his gauge of like how bad it may be out there. But all right. I'm glad you had a good time there in Vegas. I missed out. Did my name never come up? Did Grant never bring me up? We're supposed to be friends.
Never
once.
No, Grant was like super excited to see me. He kept telling people, I'm hanging out with my friend Kirk. And so I met his fiance, his lovely fiance.
She's delightful. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. We went out to dinner. We had a blast, man. It was awesome.
Bobby Sue. Shout out Bobby Sue. All right.
Yeah.
As far as the slate tonight, it's just a 4-gamer. Again, if you guys are joining us, people kind of sprinkling, I imagine. So that's why we have some time for some pleasantries. 4-game show. So we don't have to necessarily run through all this. If you want to join us, the chat currently not working there on the old YouTube. You can talk to us in the Discord here at Rotogrinders. Where do I find the Discord channel? You go to rotogrinders.com/Discord and you go to the live stream chat channel. It is free. You do not have to be a premium member, just be an RG member. And that doesn't cost you anything either necessarily. You can, non-premium accounts, all accounts are welcome. A lot of the news out there is pretty much settled. I do want to see the Christian Wood news, which I don't think is dropped throughout the show. Giving it a refresh now. No. Okay. So that's the big news that we're kind of waiting for. Jeremy Grant, we know, is out for Detroit. That's kind of a big deal. Philadelphia, who knows? I mean, you might've been out there in Vegas when the Embiid scratch happened after lock. They never reported anything. He had a rib all of a sudden. But, Korkmaz and Yang were certainly out for Philadelphia. They're on a back-to-back, so something goofy might happen with Philly. Wouldn't surprise me. Of course, Brooklyn, everybody's out for Brooklyn. Add one more name as far as people being out. They added Langston Galloway. I don't know if he's going to play today. I don't know if he's available to play. I want to keep an eye on that. I assume he's available. I think he's signed. And the Knicks, of course, are without a bunch of dudes, too. We'll talk about that. And one more to add to the list is Kevin Knox, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but kind of sort of a big deal because those are, 20-25 minutes we're going to delegate. And Spencer Dinwiddie will be resting on a back-to-back. In Houston, Christian Wood is questionable with his thigh on a back-to-back. He was doubtful yesterday. I'm guessing he doesn't play. In Houston, they have no reason to push anybody. So I assume he doesn't play. Just kind of stay tuned on that. But the slate, it starts with, we'll go game by game, but I suppose the Durant thing we have to talk about. Durant played 48 minutes last game. Of course, 5 of those were in overtime, but, going to likely play 40, 41, 40 minutes. He was questionable early in the day until Harden was ruled out and everybody else was ruled out. But that is the first place you start as far as the slate. Do I play Durant? And the answer is, I assume, yes. Yes. Yes.
I think, yeah, you start with Durant for sure. But there's like a little bit of a hesitation. There's the fact that, they were talking about like wanting to not play him in the last game and then having to play him. And so like the same thing is like happening today. So I think we have to assume he's going to get his full load. I mean, he is the team. It's going to be the same kind of run back here. The game is on NBA TV tonight. What's interesting is that, everybody's been speculating that maybe Embiid would be out and Curry would be out, and then them not being listed on the injury report certainly made that look like they're currently going to play. But I think I don't know what the number is, but there is some sort of risk that Embiid could be like a game time decision scratch or something like that right around there. Because it would make sense, right? But because he got hobbled in his last game, right? And Curry too with his shoulder, and then also Curry going out and celebrating with Steph after his big night, So
they're both in New York. I didn't realize. Did that happen? Because I don't know when did Curry show up, because they're playing Brooklyn tonight. Did they both cross paths in the same city?
Yeah, they crossed paths.
I didn't know that. Okay, didn't think of that, but okay.
They didn't cross swords, Dean. They crossed paths.
That's the you and Grant story we didn't get to. That's the unedited version. That's the premium version of that story. Yeah, okay. I'm the same way, but I really think there's a chance that something goofy might happen with Philadelphia, because we've seen it before more than one time. Doc is like one of the bigger liars when it comes to coaches. Sometimes he'll just say the direct opposite thing that's going to happen. So yeah, it's weird. And Drummond, just be ready. I didn't even check Drummond's price, but I assume his price is like really palatable if Embiid's out. He's just kind of a solid play. And we got a couple other pieces too, but yeah, so just sort of stay tuned on it.
The line has moved 3 points since they announced Embiid in. So it does look like he's going to play. I mean, it was right before that announcement for the injury report came out. It was the Nets -1, and now it's Philly -2.
Wait, so that suggests that
Embiid will be playing.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because maybe they were like kind of hedging, or people were speculating as far as that, because we've seen it before, and sharp people are on top of it, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but wouldn't surprise us. Very first game on the docket. Let's go ahead and break it down game by game. First game is Detroit, Indiana. 209.5 is the total. Indiana is a 10-point favorite. Detroit is without, we talked about one of their main pieces, Jeremy Grant's out with a thumb. Killian Hayes expected to play with his thumb, and of course, Kelly Olynyk's been out for a while. Indiana, they're as healthy as they have been. Of course, TJ Warren hasn't played all season long. TJ McConnell's pretty much out for the year. Torrey Craig is questionable with an illness, but he's barely in the rotation most nights. Cunningham does see a boost, but man, he got a boost in his price as well. What are your thoughts as far as Cade Cunningham, as far as the Detroit side? And we have a really cheap Saddiq Bey who's been horrific all season, but in theory, this is a good spot when you consider how many minutes he should eat up.
Yeah, so Saddiq Bey played less minutes. He got it like a minutes cut in their last game, which was strange, because you would think that with Jeremy Grant going down, that he would be the natural, since he's already a big rotation piece for them anyway, you would have thought that he would have gotten a full allotment of minutes, but he didn't. I don't know. They also didn't play Corey Joseph much, or they didn't play him at all out of the rotation. I don't know if that's going to be the same going forward. I don't know.
There are implications. They're thinking more about the future and more about the young guys, and Corey Joseph is not he's not a part of the future. He's not one of the young guys. So correct. I think that he's basically out of the rotation, but I don't know. And I think that's the case.
And then they start Hamidou Diallo, and then he didn't even play many minutes. Now the game was pretty much out of hand, but still you would think that he would have, played more. So, so it looks like they're all over the place with minutes. So I think there's a lot of variance in minutes here in this game, and I'm not really sure how to handle it. Cade Cunningham is the one guy I feel like no matter what, he's going to be out there on the floor. So he's going to get, any situation, if it's a blowout, if it's close, if they're trying to things, he's going to be on the court. I feel completely comfortable with that. So
you got to pay for him though.
Exactly. You do have to pay for him, which is a little scary. I think it's totally worth going back for Sadiq Bey. I think his price is completely is nice at sitting there at 4,900 on DraftKings. And I think he should play more in this game. Frank Jackson is another guy that I think could play a bunch of minutes, did play 31 in the last one. It's the score. So I'd look towards any of these scores. The thing that's crazy is Isaiah Stewart played 40 minutes in the last one. I mean, 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, and that means he didn't foul out because, they definitely, he fouls out a lot. Obviously, he gets in foul trouble a ton. You can't assume 40 minutes, but I think we have him projected somewhere around 30, 31, 32. I was looking at it just a few minutes ago. Yeah, 30. The other thing is, boy, Joseph being out, they elevated Saban Lee, got a lot of run last game. And this kind of sort of might be a case we saw with last year. Like Detroit played a bunch of dudes like mid-20s and they were all kind of useless. You remember that?
Yep.
We might, like Rodney Magruder. You mentioned, Stewart and Jackson.
Yeah, they played Magruder for some reason. I don't know why in the last 19 minutes, but Josh Jackson gets no love. Killian Hayes is kind of dealing with a thumb sprain. So it makes sense that maybe Saban Lee picks up even more minutes tonight, but maybe they just go back to Corey Joseph. I don't know, is what I'm basically trying to get at. So this side feels really, really hard to me.
Detroit's rotations, it's very fragile. It's kind of like in the Sacramento area. It's just trying to figure out where to delegate these minutes. We got to put something on it, obviously, as far as our projection team. DK, we're looking at a 25% ownership projection for Cunningham at 8.6K. I don't love that number just because that price is pretty steep. I do like him more on FanDuel, and the ownership reflects that, where he's 7.9 on FanDuel, 39% as far as the ownership, just much more appealing. And again, Bay, we're expecting 30 minutes for Bay, and he's 4.6K on FanDuel, which is pretty appealing. 4.9 on DK, which is, I think, fine. Diallo, maybe he starts again, maybe he doesn't. If he starts, maybe he only plays 25 minutes. I have no idea. Stewart, his minutes have been fragile at times, many times due to his own doing. Sometimes he doesn't close anyway, but there's certainly some upside in that. But on the whole, right, Detroit's just, I don't feel very confident about a lot of things outside of what you said with Cunningham. Like, he's going to get the minutes, he's going to get the run. He'll play 35 minutes or so. If this game's tight, if it's close, it's probably because Cunningham's doing things out there. But otherwise, there's just a bunch of darts that I don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I think it's Sadiq Bey is probably the most comfortable just because of the low price tag, that even if they played him the same lower end of the minutes as 26 as he received in the last game. Yes, he had a horrible game, but you should expect more than that as a result. And so I think he's not going to burn you at worst. And there's a chance he gets hot from three and starts having a good game and he has minutes upside, right? Like 30 plus minutes wouldn't shock you, right? Not at all.
No.
Isaiah Stewart is probably the next best play, in my opinion, just from a price and minutes standpoint upside. And then Cade would be the third. And then I don't feel comfortable with anyone else.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at as well. I like the Stewart a little bit more on DK, just kind of the way the build works at 5.7 as opposed to 6K on FanDuel. But how about the Indiana side? You could pay for Sabonis if you want to pay for Sabonis. There's rumors he wants out of Indiana. I don't know what he can fetch at this point. No idea. Remember he was traded for Paul George many years ago. Was he the main piece in that game in that trade? I think was SGA in that? It was SGA and Paul. And wait, am I confusing? I'm making more than one trade in my head, aren't I? Sabonis was traded for Paul George, I think. You remember this? Doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts as far as, those are the constants: Sabonis, Brogdon. Turner's got a pretty good price. I think on FanDuel he's got a really nice price. If I'm just want to double check, I think he had a really nice price over there. And of course he can get going from a stock perspective as well. But just not my favorite game on this slate, if it's not pretty clear. But for sure, you can always get the Sabonis. You can get the Brogdon. LeVert's fine. Turner's solid. That's kind of where I stop. Fuerte's whatever.
Yeah. So my thoughts. So first off, basically there are good matchups here for this game. So if they do keep it close in this one, the Pacers are in a decent spot. It is a back-to-back for them, but they're 10-point favorites. So obviously there's blowout risk, but if it is close, there's some spots to take advantage of. And that would be basically in the amount of steals and blocks that the Pistons as a whole give up. And also the fact that they're 22nd in defensive rating. So immediately, I like, quietly, Miles Turner has been pretty strong recently. Now he's more of a FanDuel Yahoo play. He's really cheap on Yahoo. And I just think he has immense block upside. I think he can totally overpower Stewart in this matchup. I also think that he could shoot the three, and I doubt Stewart will be chasing him out there. So he's someone I like. Sabonis and LeVert and Brogdon. I think those three may be on the potential trade block, if what I've heard. If they can get some good things for them, which they should be able to do. But so those guys are kind of the core. I don't know who I like. I think it just it depends. I think LeVert's price on FanDuel is extremely playable for sure. I think he's a little overpriced on DraftKings. So I would probably feel better with Brogdon on DK. So Brogdon and Turner would be my favorite DK plays. And then it gets down to Sabonis, LeVert. Duarte's fine. He's kind of meh, but struggled in these last 3 games, but he's been pretty consistent before that. But I think it's just correlates with LeVert taking more on, who's finally getting a little bit more comfortable, a little more healthy. He's not deferring as much as he had been. So that kind of makes sense, is where he's stealing the production from.
I hit the Google machine. Victor Oladipo and Sabonis were traded for Paul George. So yeah, and somewhere along the way, I missed another person, but I think there's another trade that I was talking about, kind of melding the two. But that's basically all I have for this game. Is there anything else that's worth of note? As far as the ownership, let's take a peek. We have 15.6% projected for Brogdon on DK. He's the highest owned pacer. Right there is Sabonis at 15.4. Miles Turner at 12.7. Duarte 10.9. LeVert at 9. That all kind of makes sense to me. Nobody really popping. Sabonis on FanDuel, a little more palatable, 30.8%, 28% for Brogdon, and 23% for LeVert. Yeah, the Pacers will go more appealing on FanDuel, just kind of the way the builds are working. And also, like, that probably coincides with Brooklyn being easier to roster on DK, which would affect the ownership there as well, too. Does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
All right.
I think if you want to play the Brissett, potentially, if you want to play the blowout angle, and somebody who's would be playing like the whole fourth quarter and someone who can produce a little bit, but that's reaching. But it is a 4-game slate, so
it's a 4-game slate. There's certainly a scenario where Brissett's important. If the game blows out and he's a decent fantasy point minute player, and is he official? Would he be a mop up guy? Is he terrible? Is he bad enough to be a mop up guy? Maybe. I'm not sure.
He'll be out there. He'll be a mop up guy.
Yeah. I thought it'd be a little higher, actually. 0.73 fantasy points per minute in the season for Brissett. For some reason, I thought it'd be higher than that. But that's kind of what he registered so far. Let's move on. Let's talk about Brooklyn. Hinted that game a couple times already. 216.5 is the total. Brooklyn, like you said, 2.5 3-point dogs here to Philadelphia. On the Philadelphia side, we know Korkmaz is out, not feeling well. Gorgie Niang also not playing basketball. That's the only thing we have officially. Going to have an eye on Twitter as well, obviously, to see if anything changes. But it's Philadelphia, so we probably won't know until like 5 minutes before the game, and then we still won't know. As far as the Brooklyn side, we know Harden's out, we know Brown's out, Carter, Bembry, Nectat, James Johnson, LMA, Paul Millsap. They had 8 dudes, and now they have 9. Well, we're not certain. I'm trying to find if Galloway is available. They just signed Langston Galloway, which I would have thought he was on some team in the league. I haven't thought about it. Like, why is he not in the league? He's not in the league, apparently. Maybe he's available tonight. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's signs and doesn't play. Not sure. I think he did sign. But anyway, they may have 9 players. More likely, probably 8 players. We talked about Durant already. The only hesitation, like you suggested, like maybe they don't want to fully play him. Like they did want to give him a day, like you said. That kind of came out. Like, they were going to rest him. But once the Harden stuff came, like, Durant's like, let's go for it. And then played 48 minutes. Of course, 43 regulation, went overtime as well. I think the big conversation here as far as the Brooklyn side is like, what happened last game doesn't necessarily mean what's going to happen this game, right? Like we saw Edwards get loose. We saw Duke play amazing. Before the game, you would have had Cam Thomas in front of him. Cam Thomas was playing well ahead of him as far as the rotations. And I was surprised Cam Thomas didn't start. And I still ended up playing him like a donkey. And I ruined some really good lineups with him.
I don't think I got blown out of the water with Cam Thomas too in that one, and I don't think we were donkeys. I think he was the donkey. I think he just played horrendous, and he was so bad that they just cut his minutes. I don't know if
he played himself out of the game. Yeah, and Duke was good.
Yeah, Duke was good, which was weird. And no, Thomas just didn't have any fit on the floor. He, normally when he's played in like a second unit, he's someone who could shoot the three and could get to the rim. He wasn't getting to the rim. He was bricking threes with his horrible form. He's got that horrible form, and he was lost on the defensive end, and his guys kept giving up, kept scoring easily, and he was out of position. So he got yanked. So, I mean, that happens with young guys, right? And like, especially in weird situations that they're not used to. So basically it became a game where Durant didn't really trust anybody but Blake and Patty Mills. And so like, they were literally running just a little pick and roll up top with Blake and Durant, and Patty Mills would be the other guy that they would pass to. And then no one else was doing anything unless they got like David Duke Jr., which is a hell of a name, by the way, right?
It's a rough name to have, man. It's not his fault. Yeah, no. The junior helps maybe a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Does it? It's like the son.
I don't know.
Yeah. But like when he was getting like he was getting himself in good positions and backdoor cuts and getting like easy buckets and whatnot in that game, and he was playing well. He was focused and locked in. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a bounce back for Cam Thomas in this game. Some of my friends who watch more Nets than I do have been high on him, and I was like, this guy's the worst player I've ever. I watched like fully that last game. I was like, this guy's the worst player I've ever seen.
I watched the tournament as well, and that was my introduction to Thomas, and I'm like, oh, this guy, it's rough. It's not, and they like you said, they kicked him off the court. Did not play any of the fourth quarter. Did not play any of overtime. They only had 8 guys. And granted, he didn't start, which again, I thought that was kind of surprising. I thought, well, he's still going to close most likely. Maybe he's still going to play like 30 minutes. But like we saw Edwards play 43 minutes. We saw Sharp was like the 8th guy, basically played 13 minutes. But Duke played 37, put up 10 and 13. But, if the ownership is going to reflect how that one game went, I think there's an opportunity to just bet on what we thought was the most likely scenario to happen before the first game played out. Because just because it happened the way the first game happened doesn't mean it happened this time. That's just 1 in 1,000 in a simulation, however you want to do it. And I think our ownership is reflecting that, because we're looking at Thomas at 4% owned currently on DK. And that'll change if he somehow starts. He probably doesn't, just because of the way the last game went. But why can't he be the guy that kicks off? Somebody else that's starting in his way. That's sort of my thought process on this. And is that a stand you're taking as well?
Yeah, I think it's worth going back to. And I also think if I were a betting man, which I'm not because I'm in Massachusetts, and I don't have the time to get in my car and drive to New Hampshire real quick, but I would pound the 76ers here at the spread. So personally, there's that Ewing theory where like with teams perform better when their stars are out, because they're all focused, locked in. They're trying to make the most of their time when they're on the court, and they're all trying harder. And but then there's like the aftermath. Yeah, then there's the aftermath of that, like game 2, game 3 afterwards, after these guys have all played like 48, so you look at the team, right? Durant played 48 minutes in his last game, right? 41 minutes. And so he's played 40, 38, 41, 48 minutes. So like in just his last 4 games. So like he can't be doing this for this long. And then Blake Griffin got 31 minutes, which is like abnormally high in that last game. And he's someone that should not be doing this. So like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this team comes out completely flat. Also, they have Tybalt to like lock on to Durant. I understand Durant is matchup proof and Durant can beat anybody one-on-one, but Tybalt can be annoying, right? Like he can be an annoying defender. And who else are they going to go to? Who else? It's Patty Mills is like their only answer in that scenario, right? Like Blake's going to shoot his threes poorly. Right, he
can't create shots for himself anymore. Yeah. Claxton can't create shots. He never can create shots. Like he needs Harden to set him up for his pick and roll stuff. Or he gets his own jump off the board.
You're living or dying with David Duke Jr. or which they're not going to give the ball because they don't trust. Or Patty, it's going to be Patty Mills is going to have to pick up all that slack. So they could be really flat tonight, is what I'm trying to get at here.
Once you put that bet in, though, Embiid's going to get ruled out.
Yeah, I know that's the word.
So yeah, the other interesting thing as far as the salary stuff, like So people saw Duke go nuts. People saw Thomas play terrible, and Duke is 4-2 and Thomas is 4-7, and Duke probably starts and Thomas is probably off the bench. 24% ownership for Duke right now, 4% for Thomas. Like I'm gonna go back. I'm going back to playing some Thomas. Like I'm gonna do it. I mean, it's like you said, it's a short slate, and you got to take your shots. I think that's an interesting shot. As far as the bigs, how do you feel about the price there for Claxton? We're projecting 26 minutes for him. 3.9K got bumped up, but not a ton. And there's Blake lurking at 5K. Who's your preference as far as the bigs on the Brooklyn side, if anything?
I think I think Claxton is my preferred big, just like as he was in the last slate. I was worried about his minutes ceiling, which I think played perfectly true, where he, you would have, if he 26 has to probably be around that ceiling because he was playing pretty well. He was playing decent defense in that game. He was getting to the rim. He was 8 for 10 because that's what he does. He either dunks it or has little layups around there. He's cleanup guy, but he was playing well and still only played 26 minutes. The guy they really trusted with Blake, and I think it's the same scenario tonight. I don't know why they trust him so much, and he just gets there, not on offensive production, but he had 2 steals in that game, which were really just 2 passes that were literally thrown into his hands.
I did see that, yes.
But like that's what he's on the court, right? Kessler, Edwards.
He's got a nose for the ball.
Yeah. He played ridiculous minutes. So, I mean, all these guys are still in play again, at least on DraftKings where they're still pretty cheap. They got a nice bump over on FanDuel, which makes them not as much of a priority, at least I don't think. Have you built over there?
Yeah, I've kind of messed around with it, and I ran some optimals. We'll talk about it in a second. But I put up the court IQ. Kessler Edwards came in the game and 9 minutes and 51 second mark in the third quarter, right? Did not exit, played all the third quarter, all the fourth quarter, and all of overtime for a grand total of 43.68 minutes. Good Lord. I never heard of Kessler Edwards. Somebody was telling me, I was in the poker tournament. Were you in the RG poker tournament by chance or no?
No, I missed it because I had to get my dog. I had to go pick up Phil.
How's Phil doing? All right.
Phil's doing great. So he had the best sitter. So there's like a dog sitter that's like the best sitter ever. She was a former a veterinarian and like rehab dogs. So she was like perfect and like he had great time. Doing great.
Good to hear. So I'm taking a peek over at FanDuel and I'm looking at, I ran a bunch of optimals. I capped it at 70%. And I'm trying to find the Brooklyn guys. Of course, Durant is in 70% of the lineups because obviously he's a slightly better play. I think if you're going to consider fading him, I think it's on FanDuel. Like, well, of course you can if you're running 150, yada, yada. But like, I think he's a little more fadeable on FanDuel than he is on DK. The next Brooklyn guy to land in my optimal is Patty Mills at 8%, which is just wild. That's just how they move the prices there on FanDuel. They were proactive, that's different, right? I think that's different.
Yeah. It's like they know that he's gonna do well. I think he's gonna do well tonight, Patty Mills. But it's tough paying for that.
6'6" for Patty Mills on DK. On FanDuel, he is 6'5". Yeah, and as far as the rest of the guys, as far as our prices over there, like Duke 6'1", Blake 6'4", Claxton 5'9", Kessler 6'3". I mean, I suppose one of these guys can get there because again, they're only 8, possibly 9 bodies. But you're gonna the path is a little murkier. It's not as clear, right? That's sort of if your second favorite Brooklyn net on FanDuel would be who? Would it be Mills? Is that who you said?
Yeah, just because I think even on it's tough to swallow at 6,600 on DK as well. But I think he's gonna. It just makes sense for me with Tybalt clamping down on Durant. Like they're going to need a scorer that they trust, and they don't trust any of the other guys. And Mills is going to be that. He's going to have that role by default, and he's like one of the only guys who can do it. Now it's worrisome after he just played 43 minutes, 35 minutes in the game before. But he's the guy I like.
The Philadelphia side, we're not seeing a ton of ownership at all. On DK, we're seeing 18.7 projected for Embiid at 11.4K price, which is that's not a great price. That's almost in the Jokic territory. Granted, Jokic is underpriced when he's 11.4 or even 12K. That dude's ridiculous. He did it again yesterday he didn't need the fourth quarter. Like he wasn't incredible, but He put 60 points or something like that. It was kind of sort of somewhat disappointing that he only played 3/4. But yeah, he's the highest owned guy on DK. Otherwise, everybody's sort of priced where they should be. Nothing terribly interesting. That's DK specific. As far as how that's playing out on FanDuel. Embiid, you have the money apparently for, well, Embiid's 10-5, a little bit different story. Tobias 24, he was looking at what, 24% for Tobias at 7K, 7.1K, and Embiid 10-5 looking at 30% ownership. Maxey at 17% ownership for 6.4K. I don't love that at all, unless Embiid gets kicked out. What are your thoughts as far as Philadelphia? Like, and people like to run stuff back, but who do you run it back with on the Philadelphia side?
I kind of like Maxey actually, just because they just play this guy ridiculous amount of minutes. And so this game, should be pretty sloppy. I think there's a chance for a blowout here too as well. And I feel comfortable with Maxey, being out there just because of their lack of bodies the whole time with like Korkmaz out. So I think Korkmaz being out really does help him a lot. Tobias Harris, if you want meaningless stats, like that's a guy. So,
max contract, meaningless stats. Yeah.
His price is fine. It's playable on DraftKings. It's really good on FanDuel, right? But I do think Embiid should smash if his ankle is fine and he's playing, not on the injury report, and he plays this game. I don't see how they stop him at all whatsoever. I mean, I've said that a million times about Embiid though, and he somehow finds a way to let you down. But I think this should be a monster game for him.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there. I agree. Embiid, of course, interesting in tournaments, better price on FanDuel than is on DK, but the ownership reflects that. Again, last warning, I don't want to be paranoid, but do be aware, when you stay on the news as much as possible, as much as you can be up to 7:30 as far as that tip off. I have nothing else to say as far as the rest of the Philadelphia guys. Like, they're without a couple of people, but like you said, the price adjusted. If Embiid doesn't play, they'll play Maxey like 40 minutes possibly. That wouldn't surprise us. And of course, you play Drummond. Like, that goes without saying. I mean, what is Drummond's price? I don't even know, but I assume it's a good price or good enough.
He's 7K on DraftKings.
Oh, okay. That's actually worth a conversation. What's he on FanDuel? 7K is not like a lock. It's good, right?
Yeah, he'll if Embiid was out, but like the thing is, like if Embiid's out, we're gonna find out like right after lock. It's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, 6-1 on FanDuel. Like, you play him there.
Obviously. I think Embiid's playing. I mean, it's on NBA TV.
It's not TNT, but it's kind of a national TV game, I guess. Yeah. And
they need a win. They've been playing so poorly. They need their team leader here. This is a game they should be able to win. Grab the win. I think he plays.
The Heat,
if he's fine, if his ankle's worse than we think, and they're just got some crazy stuff going on, then obviously we're gonna get hurt in that scenario.
Didn't even appear on the injury report, like not even like a probable or whatever. Like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? And like my Heat, that without all their players, they embarrassed Philadelphia last night. Hey, what up, YouTube? Hit that like button. If you subscribe, helps us out with the old algorithm. And if you want to chat with us, this is how you do it. The chat currently disabled. If you guys just joining us during the conversation earlier, go to rotogrinders.com/Discord. Doesn't cost you anything. That is a free channel. There are some premium channels for premium members. That one's not. That is a channel for everybody. And go to the live stream chat. And Devin, extraordinary producer, he's going to be joining the show later on. He's going to be pulling those questions, asking those questions on your behalf. We'll be happy to answer them before we step aside and get out of here. 2 down, 2 to go. I think this one's really, really interesting as well, as far as New York and Houston. Just a lot of like fragile minutes as far as the slate that's worth talking about. 215 is the total in this game. Houston on the back end of a back-to-back. They are 5-point dogs to New York. A lot of body parts missing in this game. New York, of course, without RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes. Now they added Kevin Knox, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it kind of sort of is. Houston, KPJ still out. Eric Gordon back with his groin. Dan House is out still, and Christian Wood is questionable, but I would say he's highly, highly questionable. Shout out Dan Le Batard. But yeah, our thoughts as far as we got to have the Şengün conversation, because I'm seeing people say he's like a lock, and his price went up, and he played 8.5 minutes in the first half. And I think he's like should be playing a ton of minutes. You probably think he should be playing a ton of minutes, but I don't know if they think that's the case. And he possibly only played a ton of minutes in the second half because of the blowout. They wanted to start 3K Daniel Tice, who's had some DNP-CDs this season. The more interesting conversation is if Wood is out. If Wood is in, like you're not playing Şengün. You're not, Tice might not even play. But if Wood is out, which seems the more likely scenario, tell me how you're handling Şengün, especially if he's super chalky. It might be bad chalk. We're just like, could be just begging for him to get in the court and play. He could play 20 really efficient minutes, but they're volatile, right?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, if we just look to last game, like you said, he only played 8.5 minutes in the first half. So he was on pace to play 17 minutes in that game, and the game broke extremely well for him, where it was a complete total garbage time second half, complete blowout against the Cavs. They were getting blown out, and so he played ridiculous amount in the second half, and he was able to crush. He picked up 2 steals, a block, had 11 boards, 7-14 from the floor. I mean, I don't think I think for GPPs, you got to go underweight in this scenario, just because, like you said, the fragility of the minutes that this game isn't. You're running back another game, which this is a completely different scenario. Now, could the Knicks blow them out again, and could he be out there in garbage time again? Yes. Could he have earned some more trust by playing decently well, the only guy to really do anything for the Rockets? Yes. So, I mean, it could, he's going to be a good point per dollar play. There's a lot of scenarios we get there, but there's also a lot of scenarios where he doesn't get there. And I think you got to focus on that for GPPs and go take an underweight stance at this kind of ownership tonight. Everybody plays these projections, whatever the projection, and projections are a lot of the times in these scenarios, right? Like it's just looking at the literally one game sample. And they're just saying, okay, David Duke Jr. is going to play the same amount of minutes that he got in the last game. And I mean, that's not the case. These coaches try different things. There's different scenarios, different ways the game breaks. So I think you got to go underweight here. I think the guy I feel most confident in, I think Eric Gordon's price is cheap. And I think if this game stays competitive, which the line indicates that it might be, if I were a betting man, I would pound the Knicks. I would be Mr. Chalk tonight and pound the Knicks, and also take the Sixers Knicks parlay, which would probably be a chalk parlay here. That's what I would do. But Eric Gordon is the guy he's cheap. He can score. They're going to need his scoring. He's going to be the veteran kind of leader on the floor if this game stays close. Jason Tate is going to be the guy who's going to get minutes regardless in all scenarios. We've seen him absolutely pick up a ton of usage and when people have been out, and he's a scorer, so he can score. I don't really feel comfortable with anyone else here. Şengün is I'd like to be underweight in. Garrison Matthews, I think, is interesting as someone. The Knicks haven't defended the 3-point line very well this season. They're 24th in opponent made threes. This game is in Houston. He is someone that needs to get hot from 3. He can bust, right? He scored 6 fantasy points against the Cavs in 20 minutes, 29
He's got to
minutes.
score.
29
He's bootleg
minutes.
Duncan Robinson.
Yeah. But,
he's got his threes.
He could get hot. And I don't know, I'm all set with Armani Brooks, with KJ Martin. No, thank you. Maybe KJ Martin a little bit, actually. But yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, the Şengün thing, just got to walk back to that one. It's like he played 8.5 minutes in the first half. And I think there's also a scenario when we've seen this before where a guy like they have Tice start, open the third quarter, but like not come back for his last rotation, and then they let Şengün close. Like I thought that was a scenario they could have played out. So we're saying 8.5 times 2, 17. I think there's a scenario where they give Şengün the close because he would probably likely be outplaying Tice. And he's also the younger guy. If Tice starts again at 3K, like you can't say he's not in play. But again, there's also a scenario where he starts and plays 18 minutes. So even if the game's not blowing out, that's just how it goes. We saw DJ Augustine start last game as well too. He did get ejected somewhere in the beginning of the third quarter, I believe. But you're right. It's more fragility. The one that feels the safest, and I'm using air quotes, is Tate. They did kind of price him up a little bit, but he's a pretty good fantasy point minute player that gets better with the addition of or subtraction, I guess you can say, of KPJ. And assuming this is all in the assumption of Wood is not playing. We did have a what if Wood plays. And like if Wood plays, like everybody takes a hit essentially. And we have Wood projected for 36 fantasy points. A Gordon for 26, Tate for 29. He would fall back a little bit. Şengün for 27, 22 minutes projection then. And we've still never seen Tyson Şengün in the court at the same time. Like that has not happened ever in a game. And it didn't happen last game. Maybe it happens tonight. Probably not. So do you think Tice is interesting if he starts at 3K?
Yeah, he's the stone minimum. So like, I mean, he's not going to crush your lineup if he gets you like 15 to 20 fantasy points. He's probably going to crush your ability to win GPPs, but like it's not going to be too bad. And I think there's a realistic scenario where he puts up like 25 to 30 fantasy points, and at 3K, that's just fine.
Perfect. It's fine. Let's talk about the New York side. We talked about, all the guys being out for them, so they're going to have a dense rotation once again. As far as our projections, we're looking at 36 minutes for Randall, 34 for Rose, 36 for Burks. Burks on FanDuel, like 5.5K is a ridiculous price. We're looking at 50% ownership there. That might even be low, I think, potentially. Quickly, he lost a few minutes that last game, and I thought he would get a little more, but I think he's going to get more back with the absence of Knox. Now we're projecting 26 for Quickly. More of a tournament guy, but like, that's where the minutes are going to go. It's Randall, it's Rose, it's Burks. Quickly, maybe doesn't get the 30. I don't know if he needs to get the 30. We're considering where his price is. Not much else. Well, Evan Fournier is another one you can kind of point to and say, once upon a time, like this guy can score 20, 25 points in the bucket and nobody's playing him, and he's facing Houston. Theoretically, he can still shoot the basketball. We haven't seen it in a while, nobody's playing him on a 4-game slate. That's a tournament thought, obviously. I think Fournier is
you know what I think it is?
Yeah.
I think his hairline is finally getting to him. How I was a big proponent of the fresh haircut narrative, and feeling good, looking good. His hair is so like he's trying to get it all gone, but he needs to just fully embrace the bald in him and just finally accept it. And then I think
he used to have like the tail, right? He doesn't have the tail anymore. I think he got rid of that.
Yeah, he's like halfway between bald now. Like he's close to being fully bald, but I think he hasn't accepted it quite yet. And once he does, I think this shot will come back. That's just.
But Monty Jones is like, "What? Come on home" or something like that. I think that's his line. I heard he tweets that all the time. Durant's another guy, by the way. Durant looks like he's kind of trying to figure things out. I'm sure you've noticed. I don't know. He's got to see LeBron's guy or something, but he do what he wants. It's whatever.
Yeah,
he's having a good life.
He's such a stud. It doesn't matter. But
it doesn't matter.
I mean, obviously Rose is the play here for the Knicks side for a minute. Like you give Derek, he's a high usage guy. He's going to get his 20 to 25% usage in the game. He's going to score. It's what he does. He's going to take shots. He's going to lead this team. I think even in tough matchups, he does pretty well. This is as good of a matchup as he's going to get. I mean, the Rockets are still playing extremely fast, and it's a good pace up spot for the Knicks. They play no defense. They're gutted from the defensive end. So Rose should be great. Randall should smash tonight. I'm expecting. Alec Burks is good. I think a guy like Fournier, if he starts off good, he gets hot. I think there's massive minutes upside for him. He's playing anywhere from 20 to 29 minutes in these games that he's really struggling from. If he's playing well, Tibbs will allow him to stay on the floor. He just hasn't played well. So it's tough. I think for GPPs on a 4-game slate, I think you got to make some tough calls here if you want to try to win some good money. And I think Evan Fournier could be a key to that tonight. I think Emmanuel Quickly could be another key to that, especially if the game blows out and he gets more second half minutes. So you got to play some of these guys. I don't really have much opinion on a guy like Miles McBride, but I think he would get more blowout minutes, I think. I like all the Knicks in this spot tonight.
All right, let's talk about the hammer that is Washington versus Phoenix. I'm going to bring Devin on. Washington versus Phoenix. Phoenix is a 9-point favorite here. Washington in the back-to-back, which of course means Dinwiddie cannot play basketball. 213 is the total. I think this is the least interesting game from a fantasy perspective. The highest owned currently projected guy on DK in this game is KCP at 20%. Just he's a minutes eater. We're looking at 29 minutes or so. Campaign has been benefiting from the lack of Devin Booker. He's been closing as well of late. He's still relatively cheap, reasonably cheap on DK at 5.2K. Can you play Chris Paul? Of course you can play Chris Paul. Am I going to play him at 9.7K in my first 2 or 3 lineups or 4 lineups or 5 lineups? Probably not. But is the ownership going to reflect that? Probably. We're looking at 15%. Beal on the other side at 15% as well. Harrell's always interesting, especially if the starter gets in foul trouble. He dealt with a slight foot injury last night, so there's a chance that Gafford sits. Nothing official out there, but wouldn't shock me. And then, of course, we've seen it before a couple times this year when Harrell draws the start and just gets loose. He's just a must play. So I might have some Harrell shares just for that. And like either way, he's fine. What do you have for me as far as this game? Go ahead.
I liked him too much the other night in the same scenario, and then you get the alert that Gafford went to the locker room, and you're like, oh baby, and then nothing happened. He had a horrible game, and then Gafford came back. I get it. I think they're going to struggle mightily in this game. I think if I was a betting man, which I'm not in the state of Massachusetts, but if I had time to go to New Hampshire, I would hammer the Suns. I think Suns blow them out tonight. I think Mikal Bridges locks on to Bradley Beal. And I don't really see much where they're going to have any additional scoring, some good opportunities. And so I don't really like anybody on this Washington side. I mean, obviously you can play KCP chalk. I wouldn't, but I guess if you want to go right ahead. Kyle Kuzma, maybe he's a guy who could benefit from Beal having to be a little bit timid in this one, getting having to go away, getting double teamed and getting locked onto with Bridges. So Kuzma's a guy who could pick up some of that. Harrell makes sense, but it's always risky. And again, Gafford did get hurt. I guess it was his right leg or right foot. Without Dinwiddie too, I just don't see much happening here from the Washington side and at all.
Yeah, how about the Phoenix side? And by the way, for what it's worth, Paul's a better play on FanDuel when you're shopping around as far as the prices, and the ownership does reflect that. He's only 8.6K, which is a little bit more reasonable, 34%. Beal is 8.2 at 21%. Ayton, 8K at 15%. I think what is Ayton on DK? I think it's an extraordinary price, if I remember correctly. One we haven't seen in a while. 8.8. I remember playing 8 at like 6. Or something.
He was ridiculously underpriced, so he was like 6,800 or something for a while there, right? Like in that range on DK.
Yes.
He's gotten the bump. He's earned a nice bump. He's been playing pretty well, but the 8,800 is tough to swallow, especially. I think he's going to do well, at least in the first half. I think he's going to pick up a lot of that scoring. Mikal Bridges, I don't like even as like a punt play tonight because I think he's going to be locked onto Beal. And when he locks onto a player and really is the key to like shutting down, he doesn't look for much offense at all. They don't need him to. So I think that's going to be the scenario tonight. I think Chris Paul is always good if the game stays close. We saw the kind of upside he had the other night against Portland. Massive game. That was we were kind of waiting for that with Booker being out, and everyone was saying, Chris Paul really doesn't have that upside. He does have that upside when he's engaged in a close game. So if this game stays close, those are the guys you're going to probably want some. However, I like Campaign in this game. I think the blowout's in order in my eyes, and I think he's going to play a bunch of second half minutes, and I think he's going to crush when he's out there on the court against this Washington
Is he too good to play blowout minutes, or do they call like Elf at some point, Elf Payton or something? Not that you're playing Elf Payton, but I'm just trying to think.
Depends on. I think he's going to be out there, and he's going to be out there when the game gets out of hand, and it's going to be because of him going off. And I think he'll reap some of those benefits, and then maybe they'll call in Elf or something in these guys, but I don't think it'll be too many minutes.
All right, let's bring Devin on, producer extraordinaire. Has been compiling your questions, of course, in that Discord chat. If y'all don't know, if you're not aware, join us at rotogrinders.com/Discord. Go to the live stream chat channel and go ahead and ask your questions. Devin can still pull some. He can multitask. He can say hello to us as well. What's up, Devin?
What's up, Dean? What's up, Kirk? How are you? How's your last hour been?
How you feeling? How's your temperature?
Oh shoot, that's right. I got the COVID sweat going on here. So I should have a little thermo gun here and taking my thermo.
Yeah, you got to get one of those lasers they put right up against your forehead. Right?
I tell you, I feel like it's a mental game. I feel like I'm just completely tired and out of it, but that's that's expected when you come home from Vegas too. But so I'm like worried a little bit though.
In normal times, Vegas will do that to you.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like it usually takes you like a week after Vegas to fully get back in the swing of things. Anyways,
Devin, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I got some questions for us. If we want to go ahead and knock those out. Flores Mark, we'll start with this one. DK tournaments, Bigs versus Washington's been a thing. Ayton going to smash tonight, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Curtis. We were just talking about that. We think he's going to smash, and it's not
I think he's going to smash, but I don't think he's going to smash relative to his price.
You think because of the blowout?
Like, I would rather get up to like Embiid. Like, you know what I mean? You're in a position now where you can make that. 8,800 is like that's a lot of salary. What's he over on FanDuel?
You have to smash.
Yeah. What's he on FanDuel?
He's 8K, I think, on FanDuel.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. For sure, that's better. I still would probably prefer Miles Turner, I think. But he's more in the conversation on FanDuel, and he's probably cheap. Let me check on Yahoo. He's probably still cheap over there, but we'll see.
We did rankings over there today. Yeah, he's got a good price over there. $27.
He's $27. So Turner's only 21. I like both those guys though. That would make a nice lineup. The double center though too, if you want to fade Sengun and play those two together.
Now we were.
Who are you playing at center, Kirk D? I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off, Devin. But center on Yahoo is tricky because Sengun's $12. And
it was Miles Turner. It was looking like Miles Turner and Sengun when I first started building. I could play some Claxton too, although that's flirting with some fire.
There's an opportunity cost, right?
I think Stewart's 17. Center's great on Yahoo tonight. Stewart's 17. Blake is 11. Claxton is 10, Turner's 21, Sengun's 12. Then you got Embiid if you want to be different. I do kind of like fading all of these chalky lower plays like Sengun and Blake and Claxton and trying to make some builds with Ayton and Turner because I feel pretty comfortable in both of those guys for their price.
Where does Randall sit on Yahoo?
He's probably still too cheap. He's probably like $35. $35. Yep.
Does he have? He's got multiple eligibility over there, right?
No,
there's no multiple eligibility on Yahoo.
Oh, wow.
Been a while. He's got a power forward spot that's tough, and I mean that's fine, and he's $35, which is just too cheap for this matchup.
They have an F and they have a U.
Sure.
Forward utility.
Right. Before we move on from the Phoenix situation, you're saying that you're seeing a blowout potentially, Kirk. Do you think McGee maybe gets more than the 17 minutes we have projected?
No, but he could. I don't think there's much minutes upside, but there's always like he could smash upside in his minutes
point per minute.
But maybe that's interesting.
All right, moving on. CLT wants to know when does Kirk start grinding on a 4-gamer?
Kirk is always grinding 24 hours a day.
No days off.
Personally, I think 80 hours a week is weak.
K-Mac wants to know, and Yappy as well wants to know, and well, this was originally for FanDuel, but we'll touch for both sites. For tournaments, how many nets are too many?
For FanDuel?
For both sites.
Not. We're probably not playing a lot of nets, right? On FanDuel, we talked about that.
Yeah, they're not coming. I think DraftKings is where they're being shoved down your optimals, like and whatever you run. So like David Duke Jr. is getting a ton. Durant is obviously kind of a must play tonight, and then Claxton is getting a lot of love on optimals.
So you think Brooklyn might be more sneakier on FanDuel than on DraftKings?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're max out on DraftKings at like, and this is not an ideal scenario. 3. I think 4 you can get it, your push. It could happen with all the cheap guys. Just surround the 3 Duke, Edwards, maybe Claxton with like Durant. I don't see that winning a GPP though, to be honest with you. So I think maybe 3 is the best, but 4 I guess is somewhat doable, and then or taking an underweight and going 1 or 2.
For 4 games, there's actually a good bit of spots for you to like players. It seems like. Flores Mark.
There's a lot of fragility. That's why. There's a lot of like, well, this could happen, that could happen. It's hard to predict. But go ahead.
Flores Mark, DK tournaments. Thoughts on Josh Christopher? Has he made any of your MME builds there, Kirk?
No, he hasn't. Should he?
He benefited from Augustine getting kicked out yesterday, and benefited from the blowout. I will just say that.
Yeah. So like, did he did he earn some extra minutes? I don't know. I mean, he's played in 4 of his last 5 games over 21 minutes in each of them.
0.85 point per minute.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I think it's a tough matchup. I think they're going to get blown out again. So I think that's
a good thing for him.
Yeah, I think you can play some of him.
All right. Last 2 before we have to wrap up here. Morningwood wants to know for Kid Yahoo Tournaments, favorite value and favorite spend up.
Wow. Okay. Favorite value is going to be.
Do you need a second? I can give this one to.
I'm going to say. The range I say get rid of Sengun and play like Payne, Claxton, or Quickly, one of those guys for a value. I think Hamidou Diallo could be interesting too at $10. And then for the pay up, favorite pay up is that anyone?
Yeah, just a favorite spend up. Yeah.
I say go Embiid tonight against Durant. Try to get different.
All right, and then is campaign still a thing? DK tournaments.
He is for me.
Oh, he's $10 on Yahoo. Just a heads up.
Yeah.
But also Rose and Burks are 18 and 19, which is goofy as well. But so there's a lot.
Brogdon out.
Yeah, Brogdon ruled out.
Oh, okay. Brogdon out. No, TJ McConnell also out. So now what do we do? We'll let Andy Means handle that one.
Nice plug.
We're out of time. We have no time to figure it out on the fly. We got to step aside and get out of here. We're only a minute overtime, and producer Devin gets very upset when he doesn't have the time to set the next show for premium.
It's Wanamaker. I just want to interrupt you. It's Wanamaker season.
Is it Wanamaker season? Would he close? Would Wanamaker close or like?
Oh, I think he's pretty damn good. I think he's good.
Former Celtic, you probably watched them a good bit, but yeah, we're gonna let Andy handle that one. That's interesting. Yeah. He's probably still minimum, I assume. Wanamaker, I'm guessing. Got to make 3K, 3.5 or something like that. $10 on Yahoo. I don't know if you need him on Yahoo because we already talked about the value stuff over there, but yeah, we'll leave that for Andy. We got to step aside and get out of here. Devin, you had another question or no? We got to go.
No, campaign was the last one. We're good.
All right. That was producer Devin. Hit that like button. We do appreciate that. Do subscribe. We'll be back later watching the football game. Before the football game, we'll be back talking tonight's showdown slate. Fun game. Kansas City versus, I was going to say San Diego. The Chargers. Yeah.
Superchargers.
Hang out with us. Yeah, there you go. If you guys are playing the showdown slate tonight, I'll be playing it, and we're going to be talking about it. We'll be breaking it down. That was Kirk Dees, a.k.a. Kid Yahoo. Hopefully he's going to be all well and good the next so many days. Shout out to Phil as well. Shout out to Devin. That was basketball. I was Dean. We're out of here. Oh!